some time ago, I've decided to create a series of interviews in order to bring light on the light workers, or bring the light workers into the spotlight, if you will. And so this interview is the first one of the series. And I am very happy to present you that conversation that I had with the wonderful Bianca Flowers. We will be talking about stepping into our power, or inhabiting our power. I hope you enjoy it. Bye. Would you like me to introduce you as what you do? And because you do intuitive shamanic work, or shamanic intuitive, I don't know how, like
the intuitive shamanic work is good.
Yeah. And is there something particular you would like me to say? Or
so the last couple of days have been really amazing. So I've been delving more into this human design, and it's given me language to describe what I do that I guess I haven't really felt. So it is in my design that I am here to guide people to their joy, right? It is in there. And like, that is exactly what I have been doing for like 15 years. But it feels like, until I could say it's in my design, it felt like such a wankery thing to say. But now that it's there, I'm like, of course that's what I do. It's what I've always done. It's just, that is who I am. And it's like, but I absolutely cannot do that unless it's been invited, because otherwise it feels like criticism. And especially if you've got the gate of opinions, which I have. Guys like, it actually says that? And I'm like, yeah, it does.
So you bring people joy.
Yeah, I guide them to find that joy within themselves, the joy of being who they are, the joy of being in their life and doing what they are here to do.
Well, that's a beautiful way to introduce what you do. You're a shamanic, intuitive light worker who is aiming to bring people back to their inner joy.
Yes. Yes, exactly what I do.
That's awesome. And so if we go around at the topic of inner power, which has been, like, I mean, it's been all over and in every single platform, like, you need to find your inner power. We heard a lot about it, and you've had interesting experiences around it. So I feel that firsthand what it means to really step into your power, in a way. So
yeah.
I'm wondering how you would introduce it. Like, why is it important for you to be and to feel that you're embracing your power?
Because to actually fully embrace our power is to experience the joy of exactly who we are. It is to accept all parts of ourselves and to feel no judgment, and to experience the joy that brings us to be fully who we are. And in that moment, we become all powerful because we accept ourselves on all levels. We're not triggered by our own stuff, and when we're not triggered by our own stuff, no one can trigger us. So we have ultimate power because no one has power over us, because whilst we're still carrying wounds where we can still be triggered, people will we give our power away because we're always fearful that we're going to be triggered, and then we have no power.
Love it. It's so beautiful. And I mean, when you say it that way, it feels so easy, because that's it. We all have it within us, that power. It's just a matter of it's not only letting it be, it's just, as you say, to accept it, like to accept the full spectrum of who we are.
Yeah, yeah. And you spoke about inhabiting our power. When we look at it from that way, it it's like our power emanates from within every part of ourselves. So it's not even like a conscious inhabiting. It's like our body and our cells and our soul is the source of that. It's like we come into alignment so that yeah, what am I trying to say? It's like the body literally becomes the house that holds that power that is our soul and us. And every cell is the house that holds that radiance. It's like it almost when you allow yourself to fully step into that, it's like the inhabit was an invitation to get you to understand the concept of what that is. But once you're actually in it, then it's almost redundant, because it is that so it is fully who you are. There is no space in you that is not you. So it's like, how would I inhabit myself? I don't inhabit myself, I am myself.
Yeah, it's so beautiful what you say, because often we have the feeling that we need to go and kind of search it outside, you know? It's as if we reach for other people to help us find what's inside us. And that's very, like, to get external help in order to find ourselves is something that can be very helpful. But to have the feeling that we will find that power somewhere else, then it's just going, like, it's doing the work kind of backwards. Whereas it's just sit within when you find all of that is.
Yeah. And it sets up that constant chasing and that constant never enoughness and that constant nothing is ever rightness. And this, we're constantly chasing something that is actually, it's just like a phase shift, really, isn't it? It's like when we stop being scared of facing ourselves and all the imperfections, because no one's perfect. Everyone's got these, and when we allow that when we allow our judgment of that to melt away, it stops stopping us being who we are and stopping us being in our power and our joy and our radiance.
And how does that how do I phrase it, like in the work that you do, how does that show for yourself the fact that you are fully embracing and inhabiting your power? And how does that reflect on the people you work with? Like how, because that's a part, if you, like, by helping people to step into their joy and to fully embrace their inner joy, you by default, if I may say, you bring them in contact with their inner power, because it's like it's all interrelated. So how do you feel that in your job, in the sessions that you do?
So a lot of times I see people who have put blocks so they can't experience their power. And that is a very calculated decision made by some part of themselves that they're not aware of or they're not conscious of. Usually as some sort of self-protection or some protection of others. So there's some part of themselves that they don't trust, or some part of themselves that they don't like. So, and that part is very often subconscious or very, very low down in their conscious awareness. So they can't access it. So they're constantly struggling to find their power or constantly struggling to find their joy. And they don't realize that they've set up something to stop themselves doing that because they're afraid they will do something that they don't want to do. So by helping people to see what it is that they're trying to stop, to integrate that, the power, the barriers just melt away. Sometimes it's things that people have set up before they've come into this lifetime. I won't access my power until I have XYZ understanding. I see that a lot with younger people that are struggling to come into their power, and it's like there's like a protective mechanism that they could see that they would not trust themselves with this level of power, particularly really strong, like young light workers that come in with, they've got so much power and yet they have no control over their emotions. There's no way that they're going to be able to access their power until they've got some control over that, because they had the foresight to say, no, until you've got a little bit of a handle on where you're going to wield that, you're not going to have access to that. So sometimes this fighting, we're fighting and fighting ourselves, and it takes so much longer. So you could just enjoy the fact that, oh, I don't have access to my full power. I just may as well enjoy what I'm doing now. And then you have an epiphany. Oh, and then your power just appears. We make it so hard.
Yeah.
I think we often strive for this spiritual perfection. This, like in this, like this self-help community or things like, it's like, unless we are already enlightened, then somehow we must be failing.
Yeah.
Which keeps us away from experiencing our authenticity, and our authenticity is our power. It's like where we are at and the struggles that we are having every day, in that lies the keys to understanding our power and understanding ourself and stepping in to our joy, becoming our joy and inhabiting it.
Wow, that's a gem. It's so beautiful. I'm gonna have to write that down. I love it.
Lucky it's been recorded, because I wouldn't be able to say it again.
In those moments, you're like, oh yes, that's just it, and it sums it up so perfectly. That's exactly it. Yeah. And remember, we were talking about stepping into our power also has an effect on the more global society.
Yeah, on the
collective. You have it at a personal level, what effect it has on us and what effect it has on, well, if we are able to fully embrace and inhabit that light of ours, then
it's catching. And I see that in my sessions with people. It's like, if I am fully inhabiting that joy, and I find it very easy when I'm working in sessions with people. It's not saying that I'm always inhabiting this level of joy, because, you know, it comes and goes as we get challenged through our life. But if I can inhabit it for the time that I'm with my client, they can see that it's possible. They believe that it's possible. And this is the thing. It's like we have so few role models at the moment that are actually showing that it is possible to be in the absolute joy of being who we are. Mm-hmm. That for someone who is not feeling those sparks of that joy coming through, it's a very, very far off foreign concept. But it doesn't have to be far off if they start to see. It's like, okay. And now that person there who I didn't expect, now they've just popped into joy. How did that happen? And, you know, like it plays on some little judgment things that can go on in people's heads. And once there's a few little twinkling lights around, it's like, oh, and people start to, it's like, well, why can't I do that? Just makes it hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it has to come back to the only way that you're ever going to be able to do it, to access your power and your joy, is to stop being scared of yourself, to stop being scared of what we push down in around our heart space, those painful emotions that we don't want to visit, that we keep a lid on. And so many people will think that they can do that work without having to look at that. I'll just tuck that away there and I'll just work from here.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't work. And then, they can have a breakthrough, and the breakthrough feels like absolute crisis, which is kind of like what's happening in the world at the moment, because you lift the lid a bit and all the horrible stuff comes up into your awareness, and you're like, holy cow. And it takes a very brave soul to stay there with the open to their heart space whilst all the crap that you've ever shoved down there in your life starts coming up at you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It usually clears so much faster than anyone expects, because most of the time the work's already been done, and all that's down there is the memories of stuff that you shoved down. It's just got to lift out. It's just the echoes. You don't even have to experience it. Not the sort of person that recommends that you rehash all that stuff. Very occasionally something will come up that's a bit more tangible, that's got a memory attached to it, or something that's not worked through, that holds more of a message or a key or something that's important for your journey, for your growth, for your learning, something that your soul really wants you to process, some understanding that you came here for. So I'm a big one for actually not just erasing all of our shit. It's not bad. It's actually here to help us learn.
Yeah, totally. And so to have the courage to just let the lid this way, instead of putting it back on, to just accept that it's there and just let things out as they want and witness it, and be able to step back and say, okay, well, I'm just gonna enjoy that moment of being aware of what's happening, and then see what's left, really, because what's left is our essence. And we could say the same, and we'll see how it unfolds for the society, but as more and more people do that work, then it's like it sparkles on more and more people as well. So as you were saying, if you see someone who's in their joy, and then you want to be like them, and then it gives you the courage to lift the lid and do the same for you, and then it will just spread and have more and more light around the world, and it will be more and more easy to leave the lid of the society up, because we will know that it's just a matter of letting all that go.
Yeah. And when you leave the lid up, or when you are not putting stuff away, when you're actually processing it, like the more access we have to our power, the more access we have to our soul wisdom, the easier it is to process things in the moment. We only put things away because we don't have access to the skills to deal with it. It's a coping mechanism, and there's nothing bad or wrong with that. It's just we currently don't have the skills or access to someone that can help us process it, so we put it away. So it's a really important thing to be able to do to protect ourselves. It's just that we often don't get taught that that's what we're doing, and then we don't get taught to go back and revisit it once we've learnt, and then that cupboard is getting pretty full, and then it's feeling pretty horrible. And when we do that, we can't access our heart space. We can't access our joy, because packed in around our joy is all of these painful memories.
Mm.
And our heart space is our power, our joy is our power, which I think really flips on the head the idea of how we traditionally think about power.
No.
That it's something that comes from our head, and it really doesn't.
Yeah. And You said something earlier that really and we are taught that it's hard. We are taught that, like, the way we are taught is so foreign to that idea of letting ourselves live our joy. Often in society is not something that we learn, that we're even allowed to be that joyful. There's something kind of, well, it's suspicious, if you're too joyful. It's like you should struggle, like if you're not struggling in life, you're like an eternal teenager or something like that, and there's something you didn't get about how life works. And so it's all like, so I feel that it's not only to step into your power and to fully embrace it, but also to deconstruct that idea that you are allowed also to fully embrace it and enjoy it and laugh and feel light in all sense of the word. So that also is something that we have to learn or unlearn.
Yep. And something else that we have to unlearn is that joy is not happiness. Happiness is transient. Joy it's like, joy is not an emotion. People think of joy as an emotion. Joy is a state of being. Emotions are transient and they can go, and you can concurrently feel any of the emotions and still be in joy. I think that one of the most powerful gifts that people can learn is that we can experience grief and joy at the same time.
Mm.
And when we can come to that, so much healing happens. Because when we're grieving, we're usually grieving, well, we are lamenting loss and of something that we held dear, that usually brought us closer to that feeling of joy. When we're fully in grief without allowing that joy in, we cut ourselves off from that connection to that person or that relationship, which is actually still there. It's like that time, like that space where that relationship existed is still there. That past is not existing anymore, and we can connect our heart into that space and experience that joy and grieve. And it's like then the healing can happen, and we can come back to ourselves, because we've realized that state of joy is actually the only constant if we allow it.
So let's cultivate that joy then.
I'll have to try hard to speak, because often if I do that too much when I'm trying to speak to someone, I just pop into the silent joy.
Which
is gritting.
Perfect. Yeah, that is also something we need to learn as a society. To not always fill the silent moments and the gaps, and to accept that these moments of silence can be are very, very powerful as well.
Yeah. And that by sitting in that or experiencing that, it's like we receive information. Our body receives that information so much more sometimes than when there is talking, because we take it in through our mind and we think that we can understand it. And you can't think your way to joy. You have to feel or experience or inhabit your way to it, or whatever is that. The perfect word will be different for every person, but whatever it is that takes you into the innermost being and inhabiting the inside of your cells and your essence. So it's like you're inhabiting your spirit and your physical body, because you are having a physical experience at the moment. So bring that experience of spirit and joy and connectedness into the inside of yourselves. It would be lovely just to have that, just a joy circle where you could just sit in joy, in that silent joy, and for people to experience that en masse as a collective. That would be very beautiful.
Yeah. Well, that would be a very interesting thing for a meditation, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder if we could do that on Zoom.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. Well, maybe if people watching the interview would be interested in that, they could write it in the comments and we could organize a session of sitting in joy, and that'd be great.
That would be wonderful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll just close it like that. It's perfect. So I will write in the comments underneath the interview your informations as well. So if people want to experience the joy with you and they want to do work with you, they will know how to reach for you.
That would be, that would be lovely.